back. Another exciting video in the Blue Glow Electronics series. You may remember the video I posted earlier before this one, which would have been the Marantz 1152 amplifier that was all part of a... hey, Lucy. She can't see me. It's all part of a rack mount system that I picked up along the way. So at any rate, this was the second piece in that. That was the 1152 that I restored. Or repaired, I would say. So we're going to try to get this thing going next. I thought I'd show you before I got started. It's missing some caps on the switches, missing some switches, actually missing some really fine little switches. These I know I can find. These might be a little tougher. And these may be a little tougher to find, but we'll see what we can come up with. And if you don't remember, these things all had these funky European cords on them. We're going to fix that as well. Going to get the case off this thing, get it in there on the bench, and get started. Got the top off this thing before I took it in the other room. Just a couple things I was looking at here, and I can show you real quick. Luckily enough, if you'll notice, it's kind of hard to see down in here, but if you followed my last video on the 1152, you can see that you've got the same little power connections here for this power cord, so it's going to be really easy to swap out the power cord. I was looking at that. There's really nothing in the bottom of this unit, just the 3 boards here, and this couple switches, and then you flip it back over to the top here, and you've got the 3 exposed boards. I was just doing a little bit of looking. Anytime I open up a unit like this, first thing I'll start doing is I feel the top of the capacitors. You can visually look, but I also like to feel them. Sometimes they'll get a bulge, and what I noticed was this capacitor right here has a bulge in the top of it. It's kind of hard to see with the camera, but anyway, you just have to trust me, it's bulging in the top. So anyway, I got to looking, and if you notice down in beside of that capacitor on the board, there's some gunk down there, and what's happened is this capacitor has gone out and created some crud down there on the board, for sure. So I'm gonna recap this board just because I should, and because I'm going to hang on to this thing for a long time. You can see here the neat little screen from the vacuum tube screen for the scope, and then kind of the AM/FM tuner section here, and the big spinning flywheel. We'll get busy on this thing, get it in there on the bench, and get going. Thought I'd start by doing the power cord on this one, and if you notice, it's a little bit different. Matter of fact, I've not seen one of these in a long time. It's a really big plug here and a really big opening here, and I basically used the same principle. I ended up using these things and clamping down on it and getting it to come out, but I had to get the other one in there and connected, and figure out how to get that thing back in there effectively. And we're done. This one's a little tougher to deal with than the little ones that my pliers cramp, but it's the same general principle. And if you can see on the inside here, I've got them all wired up. Green goes to the green and white. The white goes to the blue, and the brown and the black match up. And they're all in there good and snug at this point. Should be able to plug this thing in with a standard US power cord now, instead of that ugly other cord. And like I said, I'm going to check out these capacitors before I power this thing up, because I know that one's bad and I don't want to cause any further damage. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Okay, got the capacitor out, and look at this thing. You see how it's all bulged down here at the end? You see where it's been leaking? Definitely a bad capacitor at this point. Alright, this was a 350 volt 10 microfarad capacitor that's coming out of this thing. Let me get back here in the light and you can see it. Coming out of it, and what I've got to put back in it is 10 microfarad at 450 volts, which is or 400 volts, which is actually a bigger, heavier duty, more voltage rating capacitor, but as you can see, due to more modern component, about half the size of the original. I'm going to get that put in real quick. Alright, guess what the good news is? you notice, alright, if you notice on just a mono channel, you get the two, just a single line deviating from center. As soon as you hit stereo, you get the full spectrum showing deviation. And with the button on tuning here, you'll notice as you get it near center, left, right, you get it off, it comes off stereo, you get it on center, tells you you're on stereo. Take that back over to audio. Alright, I'm happy. That was one dead capacitor taking this unit out, and at this point it looks to be functioning properly. Still got to pull it all apart, clean it for sure, and figure out which buttons here to replace. We'll do that and get this thing in the rack here shortly. I'm going to wrap this video up once I get it all done. So may work on the other unit in the meantime while I wait on a few buttons to show up. If you'll remember, these are the knobs that are missing the pieces. These just pull right off. And what you're left with is the 4 square piece knob connection. So let me show you what I'm going to do here. I went online on eBay and went through all of the Marantz knobs here, and I'm not finding what I need. So let me take you to the other room and show you the game plan. Alright, in my box of Marantz goodies, I had some 1150 knobs, but if you look at those and compare it to the original here, it's way too big around and right length, but way too big around. So the 1150 knobs will not work. Had some Marantz power switches, and this one came on one of the power switches, which is the kind that's typically used. But if you'll notice, it's way big around and even too long. So those aren't working out so well. Let me take you over here in just a second and show you what I got going on. Alright, if you'll remember, we had the Marantz 5000 unit that came in that chassis. And check this out. The exact same size, the exact same length I'm going to need right here. And this unit's already missing some pieces here. I told you over, it needs some cleaning. It's quite a bit dusty. But I have a Marantz 5010 tape deck unit, basically the exact same unit as this. And I just restored this one maybe a year or so ago, put new belts in it, new idler wheels and whatnot. So what I'm going to do is this is going to go into the rack, and this is going to become a parts donor unit. It'll give me a couple good knobs, and it'll give me all 4 of the switches I need, and then I can just kind of hang on to this. Put it down in the barn with lots of other fossils, I would call them. So that's the path we're going to take. I think it'll be the easiest and give me what I need without having to spend a ton of money. And these Marantz tape units in used condition with parts missing and whatnot don't sell for a whole lot, maybe $35, $40, something along that line. So I think it'd be good just to salvage these parts off of this, use this tape deck instead, and kind of take it from there. And we brought this thing in here. There again, I think I showed you in the previous video. A whole lot of scrubbing here with the brush. And I'll put the camera down and do this thing right. I just wanted to give you an example though of how you go about cleaning these things. Even after scrubbing it here, you see there's still some spaces, little spots here. Remember I showed you before. Just the tiniest bit of steel wool. Get it wet. Kind of lightly over it. It'll do an amazing job of kind of cutting through any crud that had not been gotten to previously. You would think it would take the lettering off, but I'm not rubbing very hard at all. Just more of a surface type thing here. Okay. I think I got it now. Alright. And that did it up nicely. You can see this thing is beautiful looking. I don't ever worry about cleaning the glass too much with that stuff. I always hit that with Windex before putting it back on. Let me show you one more thing. On the back of these things, these little plastic guides that are glued in, they actually drop these things in and they ran some kind of glue around them. I had one when I took the unit apart that was popped off. So let me tell you what I do here. I always clean off the old around it here with an X-Acto knife. And I'll end up dropping this in its spot, where it should be right there. And then I'll get some epoxy and mix it up and put a little bit on each side. I can show you that as well. Here's basically what I'm going to use. This Bob Smith's Industry 5-minute quick cure epoxy. If you know anything about epoxy, it comes in 2 tubes. You have to mix them together equally and stir them up, and then they chemically react and turns into the glue. You then put it in place, and 5 minutes later it dries up. So you can buy this stuff on Amazon. It's about $13 for the 2 things. I've also recently seen them at Hobby Lobby. If there are any of those stores anywhere near you, they actually carry this stuff in stock. But let me show you what's going to happen here. As you can see, it's kind of hard to see now, but 2 equally sized blobs that I squeezed out. And I've got an old little Accelerate screwdriver that the end of it was boogered up. So I just put it in the drawer, and that's what I always use for mixing epoxy and putting epoxy on. Once you get it stirred up real good like I just did, then you get you a bunch on the end of your screwdriver. Come over here and do just like I just did. Basically just like the factory did on these things. Get a little bit more here. Yeah. And once you get that set up just like that, I'll let it dry 5 minutes and we'll be good to go. I always take my screwdriver tip and wipe it off real good, get the vast majority of it off. And then what do? We come over here behind the door, we open up our screwdriver drawer here, and we put it back so I know exactly where it's at next time. It's drying right now. Other thing I thought I'd mention, that little piece of steel wool that I was using to clean that thing with, you might as well throw it in the garbage, because tomorrow it will be rusted all up and of no value. So I'm just let this thing sit for 5 minutes and dry up really good while we go check on the other part of it. Alright, check it out. So the 4 knobs off of the cassette deck fit on here perfectly, and all I'm missing now is this one little teeny knob right here, and I'm going to see if that's available anywhere. Didn't have any luck online finding one of these knobs, so I posted a want to buy ad on a couple audio file hangout forums. A couple things I have done in the last few minutes while I'm waiting on that epoxy to dry. Clean the screen well. I use Windex or Glass Plus here. Also use paper towel to kind of get it clean. And then I use this, which is a no-lint cloth used for washing windows. I did the same with the whole back area here, down inside here. Got it all cleaned up nice and well. And I cleaned the tuning knob here as well on the top. Got it all cleaned up these knobs here. Got these knobs, I'd clean these up before putting them on here. So I'm ready to put the faceplate back on. Similar story, I cleaned behind the glass with some Windex and then use that cloth. Same on this. This is actually glass and glass. Yeah, I didn't show you, but these 4 screws are what hold the faceplate on. And I just use a standard, what is it, 5/16 inch wrench here that put those things back on there nice and tight, if you'll notice now. Wow. We got FM, we got AM here. Looking great if you ask me. Power, mono, muting. Still gotta go through and clean all these switches. Haven't done that yet. And I also gotta check. I don't think all the bulbs are burning in the back of this thing. I'm gonna check that out as well. Things working good. Let me show you a trick. You hit the muting button, and that's how you come along. See the little dot here? You get it till it's in the middle of the circle. Same with the up and down here. It's dead in the middle of the circle. Take the muting off. You can see the separation. If you actually find a stereo channel, you can see the deviation as well. There you go. You see as soon as I hit stereo. Yeah, looking good. All right, I'm gonna keep. I got some lights to replace in here, and be close to being done with this thing. All right, what I've done next, let me show you here, is on the back here. There's 2 potentiometers, and if you read them, one of them says focus, and the other says brightness. So what I'm gonna do, let me get my screwdriver in the focus thing here. Okay. And what I've done is I've turned it into a little bitty dot on the front by hitting the mute button and taking it off of a channel. Basically, and this is hard to see. I'm trying to get it just right. But you basically adjust it until it's the teeniest little dot possible. You see there it gets really big. Go the other way, it gets really big. You want the sharpest dot you can possibly get. Right in the null of that thing. Then you take the muting off. So that gets your focus on. And then brightness, you just turn it up till you get kind of the brightness level you're after. And as you can see, looking very good. Take it off stereo.
Gotta be NC.
I don't get very good stereo reception here in the basement at all. There we go. It's kind of fading in and out of stereo. Anyway, you'll notice I've got all these knobs back on at this point. I've also got the 2 knobs here. I think I'm just going to have to wait till I find one of these. It could take a month, it could take weeks or years, who knows, but we'll find out. Now if you'll notice, we got, as soon as I hit a stereo channel here, get the stereo light. We've got the dial light indicator at the tip of the dial, but guess what we don't have anywhere here in the middle at all? All the lights are burnt out behind this thing, so I'm going to replace those, so repair them. Okay, the way you get to the bulbs on this thing, you've got 1 screw right here, and 1 screw right down here, which is right behind the dial string and whatnot. And I took those 2 screws out, and then this whole thing, if you just roll it backwards, here you go. You got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bulbs. Looks like all of them are gone. I'm going to test them just to be sure, but we'll get those replaced. So you may wonder, why do I have the soldering back on, and what is this capacitor balloon sitting here on the bench? Well, remember when I said all the bulbs were burnt out and I was going to test them just to be sure? Well, sure enough, they were not all burnt out. And so what I found was there's little 2 wires coming off of this this little board that lights up all the bulbs here, and it feeds down to the power supply board here. And lo and behold, we're not getting 8 volts off of that power supply part of that section. So I started looking around, and I believe I've got another bad capacitor. I've also found a bad resistor right in here, this R809, and as well as this capacitor here, which is C810. So I'm gonna do a little bit more work on the power supply and see if we can get this thing running. Let me move this thing over here in the light a little bit. This resistor is toast, as well as this this capacitor here. You see underneath of it, see how wet and gooey it is, and it's kind of leaking. So let's get those replaced. Well, it's Tuesday afternoon here, and I just got home from my day job, and it is 8:41. So I spent about I got home about 8, and I spent the last little bit. A lot of times I do this to kind of decompress from my day job, which is a little bit insane lately. At any rate, what I've done this evening was, if you remember, we still weren't getting 8 volts to these bulbs. And so I just kind of took a little bit of a shotgun approach, but I didn't mind taking this approach because this is something I'm going to keep for the long haul anyway. So I recapped the entire power supply board. You see the little red marks on the top of them here? Every time I replace one, I mark it with a red tick. It's just a practice I do. The reason for that is once it's replaced, because I have been known to replace the same capacitor twice. It's easy to get in the middle of this and go, oh gosh, have I replaced that one or not? And so marking along the way is a little tip I would tell you will help you out. But, well, let me show you next. Got the power supply done, replaced the burn up resistor, and we now have voltage back here at this point, like it should be. And I was going to show you something about this. If you watch, coming in here, the positive, this green wire, if you notice it comes over here and it connects to here, and then from here to here is a bulb, right? And from here to here is a bulb, and then it comes back around to the negative. So what you've really got, I wasn't showing that real well, here to here is a bulb, here to here is a bulb, and then it comes back around to the negative. So what you've really got here to complete this circuit loop is 2 bulbs in series, so 8 and 8, 16 volts. So you should end up with somewhere around 16 volts over here. And if you'll notice, this thing here feeds not only to here, but then along the bottom of the circuit board all the way down to this spot, right? And so this one feeds to here, and then you got this one feeding to here. You got a negative that feeds all the way back over here. So you got another set in series, in other words, over here. Anyway, I was going to show you, check this out. So what we put in here, at this point I went through, and you've got these LED lights. Could have put in, the 8 volt 250 milliamp just clear bulbs like Marantz came with originally. But since this is my own personal unit, these LEDs will literally last a lifetime. One thing to note, if one of these burns out, both of them are burnt out because they are in series. So it takes 2 good working ones or you'll get nothing here. Same with here and same with here. You've got really 3 sets of 2 in parallel. Anyway, we're gonna let me turn this thing on and show you what it looks like now. Drop it over in here properly. A little bit of a pain. There. Okay. And let me see if I can roll over this way. Maybe we'll hit the foot switch down here. Let me see if I can kill the light here. Nice and blue behind there. Nice and even all the way across. If you notice, the tip of the dial indicator is red there, like it should be. Yay! It's working well. Well, we put the 2 screws back in here to hold this plate back in. And at this point, you can see here kind of the components that I've replaced so far. Bad resistor. One of these was definitely bad. Another one very much appeared to be when I pulled it out, and the rest of them I just replaced for future proofing per se. If you'll notice the face on this thing, let me turn the light on. The face on this thing looks really good. Scope's working great here. Really happy with how it turned out. The matching amp that it goes to, looking great, sounding great. Stereo light's working. Really happy with how this thing turned out all together. Gotta go put the ears on this thing and get it into the rack mount. We'll have this whole setup done at this point. Let's go see that. As you can see, these outputs have some corrosion on them, like I showed you on the other one. I just use a Dremel tool. Oops, I gotta change out the tip. That would not be good to use a cutting wheel on my RCA jacks. Let me show you. That's a little better. Use just this brass polishing brush that's kind of forward facing. Turn this thing on and he does a great job of kind of between these things. Alright. Nice and cleaned up across there. As you can see, nice and shiny now at this point. I'm going to get this thing back together. Alright. If you notice, we got the bottom screws on this thing pretty clean. A little bit of tape residue there and there that needs to be cleaned off, but no big deal. And if you notice, it does not have feet on it. That's because it's going in a rack mount cabinet. I'll flip it over here. If you'll notice, the cabinet needs cleaning here. Gonna do that real quick, as well as, if you'll notice, the I need to clean this thing up. This is the Marantz rack mount cabinet for this thing. Get it cleaned up and get them put together. Check out how clean that top came. I mean, it looks like new. All I used was just a little scrub brush, not too stiff. I think I got this at Walmart for $1 or $2. And my green stuff that I use. I think I've showed you a couple times. Same concept. You can see I'm scrubbing the heck out of this thing. This big old metal cabinet here. Gonna get it clean as well. I was putting this thing back together, putting the rack mount ears on this thing right here. I realized that missing some screws here, and these are just Marantz cover screws. There's a guy here that I got these from. He sells them. I think I bought 50 or something like that at any rate. Maybe you can see the website here if I get it clear enough. amkproducts.com. Looks like Tony. And you can see the infamous tuner with the rack mount ears mounted on. You can kind of see how these things mount on. There's 3 side screws here that hold them on, and they kind of go up and around the edge of the lip a little bit here. Really solid, sturdy units. But you can see this thing, I mean, it cleaned up beautifully. Alright, you can see these rack mount cabinet screws. They're not bad, but they're kind of dingy and whatnot. And they could be polished up, so that's what I just did with this one. I took it over here. You can kind of see how dingy that thing is. And I brought it over here. I've got a Dayton 8-inch variable speed buffer here. This end's got a fairly stiff brush that I use with a little bit of polishing compound stick. And this end's a very, very loose, floppy brush that I use to basically clean it off once I'm polishing. So basically turn the thing on, hit this thing with a little bit of polishing stuff. Then it's just polishing it up real well. And voila, we have nice clean polished. Alright, knobs. We've dropped it into the rack and tightened it down. Cleaned it up a little bit. We will we'll get the other piece in here as well. You'll notice on the heavier pieces like the amplifier here, there's also these two brackets on the back that get mounted on. And then when they go inside the rack mount unit, there's a screw hole down here that they go into that holds them. It's so that all the weight's not sitting on the front of the rack mount unit here, and it's got some support from behind as well. Now got the both the amp and the tuner mounted in here, and I'm working on getting this cassette deck mounted. If you notice, these things from the factory came with little plastic snap-in covers for these holes. Right here, I just popped one out with a screwdriver, but I got to take these out so that I can mount the ears on this thing. Got two of them mounted in here in the rack. I got it standing up at this point and looking pretty good here. However, I learned something new today, and that's what I love doing about this hobby, is learning. So this is my Marantz 5010 that I had, and this was the Marantz 5000 that came in it. And if you remember, this was missing some knob caps here, and I needed some knobs for the other unit, for the tuner. So I thought, well, I'll just rob the knobs off of this and not worry about finding these. And I'll just go over in the other room and grab this 5010 that I've got, and let's use it. Well, here's what's interesting. I got the rack mount ears mounted on the 5010, got ready to drop it into the unit, and it would not fit. Check this out. So if you'll notice here, I've got these two edges lined up here on the 5010 and the 5000. And let's cruise across to this end. Whoa. The 5000 is a good 3/4, 5010 is a good 3/4 of an inch longer than the 5000. So what I'm learning is maybe these things were specifically made for this rack mount unit. That's kind of interesting. So what I'm going to do is basically get busy ordering some parts for this, and some knobs for that, and we'll see if we can, and a new belt. I'll order a new belt for this thing, and we'll get it restored and put it in there. I thought I was done today, but alas, I'm one step further away than I thought I was. Thanks for watching. I'm going to wrap this video up, and there will be 3 parts instead of 2. And like I say, really happy with how this stuff's turning out here in the rack mount unit. Got a little bit of surface rust on the bottom of this rack mount unit down here. You can see that I'm wanting to sand down and repaint. So probably do that while I'm waiting on parts for this 5010. And we'll keep you posted.